Howdy, this is Learn to Do with Peter on October 9th, 2024. And I was going to try to turn on uh, this is harder to do without when I'm sharing screen. So let me stop sharing my screen, turn on the transcript, although I think maybe Jeannie's got it on already. And make sure I can see
Did
the
I do
chat.
something wrong?
No, you did something good, Jeannie.
Okay. I'm trying so hard to hear you. I solved
Um,
my problem and I had another appliance here to plug in and it's charging, so I'm struggling.
I'm sorry to hear it, and hopefully the transcript helps a little bit. Um, let's see. Let me share my screen again, and we'll do the HackMD thing. So, HackMD, new note. You know what's funny, Gwen? I have not tried. I haven't played around with ChatGPT Canvas yet. I've been too busy doing other stuff.
It's funny.
Um, so the things I'd be interested in doing are something like Pixie on a web page, or generating images from a web page. Let's see, Pixie on a web page using API. Okay, is there anything else that somebody's got a burning desire to cover?
Well, um, it would be so cool if people could mention any AI life hacks they're doing because our AI life hacks group only meets twice a month. So
I forgot. I was like convinced there was going to be life hacks tonight, and of course I should know better,
no,
but
yeah, they're only after the day after the salon meetings.
yep.
So because basically um, people have time limitations, so they can't schedule the meetings. So I mean it would be so cool if anybody just has a cool life hack they could share it, that would be wonderful.
I've got an interesting one I learned from Eric Sanner, actually. Let me do it real quick. And I don't know if I'll do it as well as he did, or explain it as well as he did. But you know that thing where um, you know that thing where you say act as a high school teacher and explain why the sky is blue. Wonder I almost should have picked. Let me let me uh, let me switch to Foro Mini because I think it's faster. Um, so Eric's life hack was to use multiple roles at the same time because hey, because it's an LLM. Act as, and I've never tried this. I just heard it from him. So this is not a typical this is not a typical persona I would instantiate, but maybe it's a good test. So let's see what it does. So I think this is actually a really cool life hack, because I think we know, folks probably know why you say, you know, act as a high school teacher rather than a loudmouth influencer. But there's no reason, since it's an LLM, there's no reason just to ask them all at once, right? I could do these serially, I could ask them one after another, but just ask them all at once, and it worked. So that's really cool. I like it.
Very cool.
It is cool, but it's complicated, right? So, um,
You wouldn't do it. You would have a reason to do it. The reason I would do it, and you know, maybe after I play with it a while, this is like a new life hack to me, and so it takes some time to age into it and, you know, figure out what it's good for. But this isn't the best set. This isn't the typical set I would use. This makes a lot of sense for me to ask, write, you know, I mean, maybe a thing that I do a lot is write a visual description, you know, from different viewpoints, from the viewpoint of a photographer, from the viewpoint of a painter, let's try it actually. Sorry for my little dog barking in the background.
so I might use it for marketing. You know, the
Yeah,
different.
you know, and actually that's maybe even a better example.
Should I give you an example?
Yeah, if you want.
I have someone a past client who sold hair wigs, and there's like 10 different personas for hair wigs because with alopecia, you have someone with cancer, you have young
Yep.
girls who want it just to look good, things like that.
So can I say for wig sales?
Sure.
Um,
Medical.
so it's funny. This is like a backwards way to do it, where instead of as persona right, or at least that's what came to me.
Yeah.
Writing literature, which or target audiences. I didn't remember all of your personas.
Oh, sure. Breast cancer, um, young girls, for, you know, beauty cosmetic appearance. Gosh, now I can't
This is good enough. We'll get the
Okay.
idea.
Good.
And you're right, it's kind of complicated to set up that prompt. And maybe for a simple thing, you know, like write a marketing pitch, maybe I would just ask 3 times. But if this were a little bit more complicated, ask here, doing the either the audiences or the, you know, write as kind of thing, makes a lot of sense. So I like it.
Yeah,
And
pretty cool.
this is kind of one of those things where I think each of us has learned that AI can do, you know, it can do simply what something which is really hard for a person. Asking it to make a change, you know, a simple change, you know, rewrite this, you know, in whatever. With a person, a lot of times you feel like, oh, it was a lot of work to write what you already did. I'm just going to kind of accept it. But with an AI, you can always just kind of boss it around, and it doesn't get, you know, upset or angry or bored or frustrated or anything like that. It just does it. So this is one of those things where you use an AI superpower, you know, just do all these things, you know, and it doesn't
You
care.
know, building on what you're saying and a little bit of a life hack, I like the advanced voice for that. Silly. We were looking for a restaurant to go to over the weekend, and Mom and I were going back and forth on different styles and all that, and AI did not get upset with us. trying to find the right restaurant.
Yep.
She was very pleasant the entire way through.
So the life hack is use advanced voice and just keep asking it without being shy.
Yeah, I guess use advanced voice like it's your buddy, like it's your friend, and you won't get shot down. It's a brainstorming partner. In
I
fact,
didn't,
just so you
I
guys
didn't
will
share
get
this,
a
did this.
kick out of this, I showed a friend the advanced voice and she's named it. And because she's going through breast cancer and she gets very depressed, she immediately realized that because she liked the voice and had fun, and when she's feeling down, like, oh, here I am chopping carrots again, she's going to say that to Antoine, her guy,
Yep.
and have him pick her up and help change her mood.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is I told her about
Yeah, I've
pie.
been thinking about,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, RJ.
well, I was going to say in a similar way, I've been thinking about trying to use AI to help reframe situations in terms of how I think about things, because I think that, and I noticed this from talking to my dentist yesterday. He always seems to, every time I talk to him, talk about how he has three girls and they're teenagers, and he's implying that that's causing him all kinds of headaches. But then it occurred to me today that he's got this way of framing the situation in his mind that is probably causing him a lot of angst. And I thought to myself, well, gee, I probably do the same kind of thing. And it would be good to use AI to regularly help one reframe their view of the situation so that might be bothering them, so that they can be more productive and not get like depressed, sort of, or not get stuck or limited. So I haven't done it. I think I may have done it in the past, but I think I'd like to try to do it regularly, probably with pie.
And how would you kind of summarize that?
Well, I would summarize it as use AI to help one reframe their view of a situation so that they could, I mean, you could just say use AI to reframe situations to get unstuck and or feel better about your situation and be more productive. I don't know, it's sort of hard to put it into words, but I'm sure AI could summarize that much better than I could.
Yeah. Um,
But that's like an everyday kind of, I can't think of how many different times I'm always trying to manage my emotions. And people all do have this problem where they're stuck, they're procrastinating, they're they're being perfectionist. And a lot of that stuff all revolves around the fact that they're having problems um, managing their emotions about a situation. And then if you trace that back, well, it's probably because of the way they frame the situation in their mind. And that's causing them to get upset about it to the point where they're procrastinating or
yep.
just feeling angry or depressed or whatever. So I think that would be a really great, almost every day, multiple times a day use of AI to reframe one situation if they're starting to feel irritated or angry or upset or worried or, anyway, I haven't tried using it regularly for that, but I think I want to try to do that.
I think it makes sense. I like it.
Yeah. And Pi would be really good for that because Pi, of course, it's probably good to have a good prompt to regularly tell it or to be able to click on somehow. And I like how Claire brought up a while back how um she figured out a way to or saw a way where you can have these predefined prompts that you could tell and almost like custom instructions where you say, hey, every time I do a slash R or here, every time I did a slash R, it would be help me reframe this situation,
Yep.
or run this prompt that helps me reframe my problem. And so you click a slash R, and then the Pi would say, well, what is it you want to reframe? What kind of emotional situation you need to help dealing with,
Yep.
and then it would go through whatever prompt that you had already. But it's that kind of programming of the LLM, I think with custom prompts and custom shortcuts for those prompts. I think if I could get into that mode of doing that, that would really be good.
Yep.
Because it would lead to more systematic use of an LLM that would be helpful on a regular basis and easy to do, because it's already like systematized and you already have the shortcuts and it's like the bar is very low to implement it when it gets to that point.
Yep.
Do you think maybe by turning memory on and using Pi, that it would accomplish something similar to what you're thinking of?
I can't answer about turning Pi's memory on because I don't have an account on purpose. I want to be anonymous and I don't want it to learn, like I don't want it to have memory about conversations because I feel that would probably confuse it. And when I want to talk about a very specific thing, so I like it to have a blank slate all the time, so I could tell it what it is to focus on and know about. So, but I'd like to figure out ways to do what I was just saying with some separate methodology outside of Pi. So, like maybe in my browser, I have a whole bunch of um, bookmarks set up. And then if I click on it, it runs a bookmarklet JavaScript that inserts the prompt I wanted to run into Pi. And we talked about this before in the past, Peter, if there's a way to do that, but I don't think we ever figured out an easy way to do it because the problem is getting the browser to realize where the cursor is, I think.
Yeah. So RJ is talking about bookmarklets, which I don't think I have my bookmarks thing turned on. Let me turn that on. So you can write little code that runs JavaScript code that is a bookmark, basically. And then that code can look at the page and do something with it, like look for this text box. And then, so theoretically you could click a thing here, maybe a drop down or something, and it types, reframe. I need you to reframe for me right now. A problem with that, and as RJ just said, a problem with that is these front ends are actually pretty complicated, and they get more complicated than a little bit of JavaScript can figure out where that text box is. So so that you might end up with some problems with that. We've looked before at my third-party TypingMind client. So it's got a place for custom instructions for each model, I think. I don't know how to find it actually, but and then something like ChatGPT. So Pi says it'll remember things from conversation to conversation. So maybe you could just tell it, here's a shortcut I need you to remember. You could do that with ChatGPT too. Remember, I want you to remember that if I type /r, I'm asking you for a reframe. Um,
Will it remember it in general or just in that thread?
I don't. The way I asked Pi and the way it answered, I think it would remember it in general. And then I know ChatGPT will remember it in general. Let me. I don't know what ChatGPT remembers about me, so I'm going to move a window off screen and ask it real quick, and then I can say, what do
You
you
don't want
remember
us to
about me?
see. You don't want us to see.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
let's see. I don't think there's anything embarrassing about there, but on the other hand, the other thing is there's a fair bit of so with ChatGPT you can say things. I'll do a new chat, switch back to GPT-4. You can always ask it, what do you remember about me? And this is for every conversation, all the, any conversation.
That is really cool.
A lot of times it will decide to remember something without even asking you if it should remember it. So this one here is when actually maybe many of these, not all of them, but both of these are from me in advanced voice having a conversation because I'm out walking the dog for an hour and I've got my Bluetooth headset on. And it's really easy to chat with advanced voice. I'm out by myself. Nobody's gonna ask me, Pete, why are you on the phone or whatever. So, advanced voice asked me something like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm out walking the dog, and I'm looking at this beautiful sunset and, et cetera, et cetera. So it remembered that. This actually, I asked it this, what do you remember about me previously? And it expressed this a little bit differently. I remember it said something like, and you almost always take the same route or something like that, which wasn't true. It kind of guessed that from the conversation I was having at the time. Are you doing a new thing or this is the same old route? And I said something like same old route. So it's interesting that it kind of changed what it remembers about me. There's a funny thing as you might guess, I'm a software developer and a database person and stuff like that. So I was sure that it was saving these in some kind of database format or something like that. So I asked it over and over and over, can you dump this in? And then I would guess a format, dump it in JSON, dump it in YAML, dump it in whatever. And it kept doing it. And I was looking for the native way it stores it. And it stores it, I finally kind of figured it out. It stores it pretty much like this, actually. It just says, and the part of the reason I was doing it was because I had set up a system with it, which I thought was, I haven't really written this up. I think I talked about it a little bit, but you can have it remember things in different projects. So you can say, hey, I'm gonna give you the name of a new project and tell you some things about this project and just remember those things for this project, for instance, and then you can have different projects. It actually does that. It can arrange its memory so that it remembers it that way and give it back to you that way, or think of it that way. So I thought it would be doing that with a database, and it doesn't. It just does it with text back to itself. So there you go. You can also say something like remember a new thing.
Do you have a pro account, Pete, or not?
This is a plus account, yeah.
Okay. So you can do those little pre-scripted pieces. What are they called?
Custom instructions.
Yeah. And I've been swapping them in and out for different custom instructions in case that I'm doing something different. Like I'm
Yep.
doing something for school or doing it for art. It's a different custom instructions. I've had a couple of times when it's kind of ignored them or whatever. But isn't there a short-term memory where you can tell it to forget certain things too?
This is the short-term memory.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I don't know what exactly happened there. So the slash R interferes with it's got its own shortcut system. So the slash R is probably not the best thing to ask it to do. I'd have to do backslash R or dash R or something like that.
Okay, so I see in settings personalization, it says memory custom instructions on, and then memory, it tells you what so you can manage that, you can turn it off and
Mhm.
on,
Yep.
and you can clear the
So
memories.
so
You
there's
clear-
two things. One of them is custom instructions.
Okay,
And this might be a good place to do the here's
I'm sorry,
here's some
I
shortcuts
came
I
in
want.
late, so you probably talked about this already.
No, we
Oh,
didn't. So this is it's funny they kind of work the same. Custom instructions are things that you want, and this is a little bit like setting up a GPT or something like that.
right.
Um, and actually, let me try typing one when you're speaking Spanish. Speak slowly because I'm a learner. Um, so this is a good place to put something like that.
I actually had it, I asked it, help me create, was it 1,500 words you're allowed to put in those little windows?
It's a good, yeah, 1,500 characters.
Characters, and then 1,500 for the second one. So
Yep,
I asked it the question, help me craft carefully those 1,500 words. And I said, here are the things that I want for
yep,
the response. And then, so 16 by 9 images, since my images all go to social
yep,
media,
yep,
that's like a default. I typically want them in color. I want them in photographic style, whatever.
yep,
And then other things is like when I'm working up a proposal or something for education, then I have another set. So I copy and paste them out of Word documents back and forth. One thing I was trying to get it to do is it always add asterisks and hashtags to do bold and italic. And when I copy and paste it, I have to delete those. I tried telling it not to do the formatting. Am I asking for plain text? Is that,
yeah. I think it would probably it may or may not do it, but it would probably help a lot to say don't use Markdown or something like that.
oh, it's marked down that those symbols are there for,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
And when I paste into Word, can I tell it this is marked down and then it would make it bold for me correctly? Because other models do no
Um,
problem.
it
ChatGPT just seems to want to do that.
it it should so
So I think it's two different things, right? One is you want the markdown because you want the header, the bullet points and all
Right,
that.
right.
But what you don't want is bold something, it to come over as a hashtag instead of bold. So it's
That's
the
it.
formatting. Is that correct?
Exactly. Microsoft, now I could do paste special and I've done it as plain text, but then I've got to go back and bold it and set headlines and et cetera. So that's a pain.
it's a complicated thing.
Because Claude, I have no problem. The formatting stays like just like what you have right there. It
Yeah.
has headline, has bullet points, everything. The first two
Um,
are capitalized.
it's it's actually kind of complicated and it depends on your computer and it also depends on what you're copying from and what you're copying to. Um,
So I'm hitting
is the
what
short answer.
yeah, the one you
I don't
have
know if
there.
that
I'm just
helps.
hitting that button to copy this what you just have. When I
This one
copy it
here.
over, yeah,
Um,
and then I go to
so
Word document. So is there a Word, something I can tell Word of how to pay attention to the markdown correctly?
uh,
Or
the so I would say that's kind of a and so what you're getting in Word is the characters, right? You're not getting it
yeah,
formatted.
yeah.
I don't have Word, I have Pages here. Let's see what happens if I do this with Pages.
Okay.
Um, I think I think it'll actually do the right thing instead of kind of the wrong thing.
Yeah, so when I do it in Claude, I go to Word and it's perfect format. It's beautiful even.
Yeah, there you go. Um, so
Oh,
Pages is kind of the Microsoft word for Apple. It's
yep, that's
not quite the
exactly what
same,
I
but
get. Exactly what you got.
um,
So I've got a little macro I set up. It said just get rid of those two things. But then I've lost all the formatting. I mean, look how beautiful the formatting was.
Yeah, so a thing that you could try, um, uh, there's a couple things to try.
Down
So
performance?
one of them would be paste special,
Okay,
and I don't think Microsoft Word might have paste special or something like that.
it does,
Um,
but
so that might work.
it says no formatting.
Um, the uh, a complex or kind of what's happening is when so I'm going to go through kind of more detail than you all want to know, but
Oh,
it,
that's cool.
this
I
is
think Gwen
I've
wants to
kind of
know
gone over
too.
this before, and we'll keep going over again because it's important. Um, what's actually happening is the chatbots think in Markdown pretty much, and when they've I asked it for Markdown, but if you ask it for a set of bullet lists or something like this, this is pretty common for it to do it. It's thinking Markdown. The front end of the client here is the thing that translates it into HTML. So your web browser can't, it doesn't render Markdown, it renders HTML. So by the time you copy it here, it's HTML actually. But um, the copy paste system on the computer does something fancy, and you can, the clipboard will maintain a couple different formats. So when you copy this, I think probably what's happening is Chrome is saying, um, uh, here's the text, here's the HTML version of it, and here's a plain text version of it. So
Gotcha.
on the clipboard, it's got both. And then when
Right.
you go over here to your word processor, the word processor is saying, sometimes it won't actually, let me show you a different program. So this is the equivalent of Notepad. This one
Right.
doesn't understand anything except plain text. So there's no way I can paste the HTML in here. And so TextEdit asks for the plain text version instead of the HTML version because it knows the HTML one is going to be too complicated. The word processors are kind of doing the same thing. They're saying, well, the HTML is too scary. I just want the plain text one, so give me that. And Rick will figure it out,
Well,
which is what's happening.
here's my thought. If I said ChatGPT in my instructions, what format am I asking for that it will translate both to Word? Because I go from Safari, not Chrome, so it's the same exact from both, just to let you know. And Claude
Yeah,
doesn't seem
both
to
of
have a
them,
problem.
both of them, what's happening, Chrome or Safari is saying, you know, it's telling the clipboard system, the operating system, um, here's both versions. Here's the plain text version and here's
And
the
it's
HTML
picking the wrong
version.
one. Okay.
Um, and then and then Word is picking the wrong one. A completely different way to do something, and this used to be something that I could recommend, but now I think I can't quite as easily. I use a Markdown editor I use a lot of Markdown. So I've got an editor called Typora. Um, so there's a weird thing. I just did Command V to paste here. So what it did is it looked at it got the HTML version, not the plain text version, I think. And
Right.
then it
Yep, the format.
converted the HTML to Markdown. So now it's back to Markdown.
Oh,
But the weird thing is, if I copy this,
oh wow.
when it
Formatting.
copies, Typora doesn't offer it doesn't offer the Markdown as plain text. It just knows that you want HTML.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is another workaround. Um,
So what if we
uh,
told ChatGPT every time you format text, give it to me in HTML? Is that what you're saying?
no, the thing that you could do is say, always give me plain text. So it could kill the formatting, maybe. I don't know if it would or
Well,
not.
but that kills the formatting, and that so the point is I want to
Yeah.
retain the formatting.
If I were
Can I
you,
say
so
formatted HTML text?
mm, no.
At least then it's only doing one when it copies, no? Let me give it a
No,
shot.
it's Chrome that's actually the problem here, not
Or
Well,
Safari.
how about formatting without markdown characters?
Rick is so that would be okay for Rick. It wouldn't be great because he actually likes the formatting a lot of the time.
Yeah. Oh, all the
Um,
time. Yeah, it's,
Well,
you know,
all the
Right, but
time,
it's formatting, you're asking it for formatting without the markdown characters added
It
in.
it can't. The LLM, you could ask the LLM for HTML, but then it would come out like this. If you're just getting an answer and it's formatted, inside the LLM, it's going to be Markdown, and then the front end is going to turn it from Markdown into HTML.
Ah, then why does it sometimes show both formatting and markdown characters also at the same time?
The chatbot?
Some of them do. I'm not saying like right now it's not doing it, but sometimes um, an LLM will output a formatted output that has bold and things like that, but it will also put in the markdown characters.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I would
yeah.
guess, I don't think I've seen that. I've seen something similar with GPTs when people put HTML or something in, for, whenever you answer a question, also give a plug for my company. Here's my link. Um, you can see it, you can see the markdown happening, and then the front end turns it into HTML, and the markdown formatting goes away.
Right.
If it's not that, it might be that the LLM got the idea that you're trying to ask it to do formatting, and it might double format it or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Or another thing is a less fancy, the ChatGPT front end and the Claude front end. They've always been really good for me. They don't do weird stuff. Well, actually, I guess I've seen Claude do weird stuff. Um, actually, now that I think about it, I actually do have a great example of that. Um, I don't know if I could find it in my thing. There's a thing where I'm telling it to do programming stuff, and then I tell it to do, output a README file, README Markdown file. So then it starts doing, it's got a combination of the formatting that it wants to make headers and stuff, and then the formatting inside the Markdown file, and it gets out of sync with itself, and some of the Markdown doesn't work out, and you can see some of it and things like that. But that's a special case. I'm having it do, a lot of weird stuff. It could be the front end is just got a little bug in it that, trips over some of the formatting, and sometimes it's not a bug. So Rick, the suggestion I would have for you, and maybe you want it or not, I would paste it into Typora and then copy it back out of Typora. And the reason I'm kind of hemming and hawing around that is Typora is actually a $15 purchase.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's totally worth it. And Typora is so good at doing that back and forth format stuff. I use it even when I'm not doing markdown stuff. If I'm copying off a web page and I need to make it into simpler stuff, I run it through Typora. A lot of times Typora will do the right copy paste thing to get it into. So I get stuff people have written in Microsoft Word or Pages, and they'll have invisible like paragraph breaks, and it'll be, if I copy and paste it, straight, it gets all messed up. Typora is really, really good at translating the right format into another simpler format. So if you can afford the $15, it's a very
Yeah.
useful tool for
Oh,
copy
for
paste
sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just tried formatting. This is what I added to my customized list. Can you
Mhm.
format alt text and Aptos typeface, also keeping formatted HTML with formatting that allow me, and it failed. It's completely the way it was before. Absolutely, not even Aptos. Let me see what typeface.
If you give it custom instructions for that,
Yeah,
it
those are the
it just
construction.
doesn't have control over that
Oh,
stuff.
it is Aptos. I'm sorry, it is Aptos. It's just it has the asterisks and the
Yeah,
hashtag.
it doesn't really. It's not a. It's the formatting is kind of happening on the front end after the
Gotcha.
LLM is all done
Gotcha.
thinking.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing Typora can do is you can say copy as plain text markdown or HTML code. And I think
Oh,
I've also you can do you can do paste or paste as plain text. So right now I've got HTML and plain text on the clipboard. Typora is smart enough to grab the HTML and not the plain text. But if I wanted to, and the funny thing is it's not going to be, I think it's not going to be, I can say, no. Actually, what it did, I think there was, I pasted it as plain text. Let me try this one more time. Pasting as plain text, the plain text is already markdown, so it came in as markdown, even though it looks the same. This is pasting markdown rather than HTML.
Yeah, I hit paste special in Microsoft.
Mhm.
The only option is unformatted, and it still leaves me
Yeah.
asterisks.
Yeah.
So I've got like a little macro I set up where it says take out all asterisks and take out all, capitals. But I'd really love to have formatted so I can actually put it into a page layout program.
Typora is
Okay.
a really good solution for that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I also got, if anybody's used this, I got 3 terabytes of space on Dropbox. And they have these little folders where you drop it in there, it changes your WAV files and MP3s and all that kind of stuff. And Word documents and PDFs. So just by
Yep.
dropping it in there, just automatic commercial. And then it has like 4 steps. So we'll put them into a folder after it's done. And then it has a hashtag process where you can add hashtags and that puts in a specific folder based upon your naming convention. So I'm still trying to figure that out and trying to find workflows that, expedite my processing of these things. Because it seems like everything's agentic all over the place, but they don't talk to each other nice. I mean, this is a
Yes.
perfect example, right?
Yes.
Um,
And it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be like that for a
don't tell
long
me it's going to
time.
be worse
No,
before it gets better.
I don't know if it'll get worse, but that whole like copy paste thing, it's you can go through all those weird corner cases and kind of like undo the history of that going back in time for decades, like all the different little gotchas and stuff. It's
Mhm.
because of system integrations literally going back decades. And it's just a hard thing. I have another hack for you. This is called Text Sniper. And what it does is OCR. So you could actually OCR this too and get plain text.
Yeah, in fact, I'm doing a couple of little hacks. I'm using Adobe Express to take my Notebook LM audio files, put them there, have it make screen closed captioning.
Yep.
I'm having it turn it into an MP4, and then I'm adding in the timeline in Express still pictures. So I can add my own voiceover at the beginning. So I'm introducing the podcast.
Yep.
Then eventually I want to clone my voice, so I just take the text, the transcripts, and then turn it to my voice, and then it's me. And then eventually I want to make a clone of my physical presence. So everything is in my spoken voice. And so that's what I'm working on right now. But Adobe Express is fabulous. If you guys haven't tried it, it's free for doing video editing. And there's a thing called Adobe Podcast, which will clean up your audio, will add closed captioning. There's like 10 tools in there for everything if you're doing podcasts. And it's called Adobe Podcast. It's worth checking out.
Is that one free too?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. Express is it's a Swiss Army knife for anything you do design. So if you need a QR code instantly, or you need just a mock-up, if you pay for it, like if you have Creative Cloud, you get over 1 million assets, including sound beds and background music and stock photography, 38,000 typefaces, all kind of cool stuff, and templates out the wazoo. And you can create websites, full websites from there as well, with parallax and responsive design built in.
Nice.
I mean, I do kind of represent them, so I am tooting the horn, but it is legitimately, instead of having 10 programs,
Are you on the payroll now?
Well, I get paid with free Creative Cloud, and I was supposed to get free access to Adobe Max this weekend, and they somehow screwed up, and I don't have a ticket. So I'm yelling at them because I'm like, I'm going to pay $1,200 to go to an event that I've worked my life to get to be there. And I've got 4 meetings set up, so I'm going to have to pay it if I can't get someone to drop me a ticket. It's the hottest ticket in town right now, though. So I think some people got scared off by the hurricane. So we'll see.
So wait a minute, can I ask, because I can't use Adobe PDF to do my edits in it. But you're
Okay.
saying I could get Adobe Express and it could create a website for me?
Yes, not only that, you can edit everything in your PDF right there and combine multiple PDFs. It's everything that Adobe Acrobat does built in, and it will translate into multiple languages. Now I got my sales hat out. There's over 68 different tools in there that will blow your mind. Image into vector, PNG into vector files is awesome. And it does great job. And then it has Firefly built in, so you can generate images, knock out the background, add animation. It's got character animators, so you can actually take your voice and have a puppet physically move around and say your voice. There's
And
like 10 puppets.
and this is all free?
Yeah. Well, you get so many generations per day kind of thing. If you have Creative Cloud, the whole account, it's all free. In fact, you get premium stuff that's like 2 million assets on top of the base ones that you get. It's enough to get you in trouble and to see if it's worth, the $20 a month like everything else is for the
Uh,
pro. You can buy that separately, or if you have the Creative Cloud suite, it's included.
and how does it compare to Canva?
Better. And this weekend, it's about to be a lot better. Canva has some really good features, but that's who they're competing against. That's exactly what the target market is, but they own all the Adobe products. So if you're used to working with Photoshop or Illustrator, InDesign, and Acrobat, it's native.
I,
And everything is being added into it. And there's over 5,000 vendors. So you can do a design, make a coffee mug, and get it printed right through the app. And there's a plugin for ChatGPT called Adobe Express GPT. So you can render images right within there and then go right out to Express and start using it. So,
One more selfish question.
sure.
My dad used to edit a magazine. Could he lay out a magazine in Adobe Express at no
Yes.
cost?
Yes.
Holy crow, you
Yeah.
just
So it does print as well as web, as well as animation and video, everything in one. It literally is a Swiss Army knife.
I wonder, Rick, I think the comparison between Canva and Adobe Express is an interesting one. I think Canva is probably easier for people who don't already know the Creative Suite, right?
It's true, but they literally have stolen everything that Canva ever did.
Yeah,
They did the same when they created Adobe Express, I'm sorry, XD for, interface design for apps. They stole what was what's the other company that they were trying to buy for a long time?
I know the one you're talking about, and
Yeah. And then the EU shut them down. But basically what they do, and this is, if you look at Flash, they ended up buying Flash, then they buried
yep,
it. Like everything they've ever done is stolen property from some other company
yep,
that added an add-on, and then they just beat them at their own game because they're filthy rich.
yep,
So they're and the reason why they got stopped from buying Figma, that's the company.
Figma,
Figma,
yep,
which is the best in the world. I mean, there's 5,000 crazy people that show up at their conventions. They're like radical people. If you do anything, because it goes right into programming, you can build an
yeah,
app right in Figma. Anyway, the reason why they got stopped is because they had a monopoly, which is absolutely true, except the
yep,
US won't sue them for it because they love monopolies.
yep.
Amazon, Twitter, etc.
Pete,
Anyway,
you mentioned something about an OCR
Yep.
hack. What was that?
It's called Text Sniper.
Tech Sniper. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Um, and I think I paid for it, and then I'm also getting it through if you're on a Mac and if you're on a Mac, you might not want to buy Text Sniper right away because you might want to get it through uh,
does it do something more in
SetApp.
transcription than Apple's voice app built in?
If you let me come back to that, Rick.
Okay.
Text Sniper is part of SetApp. SetApp is a bundle
Ah,
of a bunch of applications. You pay one subscription price for it, and you get access to all of them. And I have found it worth it. It's like not worth it for everybody, but it's got enough stuff that I started adding up. How much would I spend? And it's easier to buy it through to SetApp. So So I've got, and I think CleanShot is actually also part of Set App. So CleanShot I use for screen captures, images and video and stuff.
Yeah.
And then TextSniper, what it does, it acts very much the same as a screen cap thing, but what it's doing is it captures it as an image and then does OCR on it.
Okay.
So it lets you, even on a web page where you can't copy something, you can always highlight it and grab it. And it's actually pretty good at janky text too. So let's see if I can. I happen to be just today. This is my granduncle, I think. David Mansfield died in a avalanche in Alaska before I was born, so I'm not too broken up about it. But
My
I
sister
guess I
was born
feel
there
for the
too.
family. Um, so anyway, you can do stuff like this too, and I think it'll probably work pretty well. It looks like pretty clean
Won't
text.
GPT do that if you upload an image, sort of? Um,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
give you an answer?
It's not the only way to do OCR. You know, you can also upload it to Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever and get OCR.
Okay.
As it
Just a quick.
happens, but yeah, for and also just things like being able to grab one part of, if you sent this whole page to, this is a whole newspaper
Right,
page.
right,
If you
right.
sent this whole page to OCR, it'd be a nightmare. But
That'd
if
be a
you just
mess.
want
Yeah,
there's a good typo right there, so you
nice.
just fix a couple typos.
Yeah,
And for
Um,
people who have Windows, you can use the Power Toys that you can download for free from Windows. And they have a text extractor that all you got to do is push like the window key and then Shift and T, and then you drag your cursor across your screen that and it can capture any text. And it seems like it works pretty much like Peter was demonstrating, except this is for Windows and it's Power Toys. It's part of Power Toys and it's free.
And the Mac, you can do a screenshot and OCR it right there on your phone. And I highlight
yeah,
text all the time. So
yeah.
that's pretty fun too.
I had a quick question about the 6 flavors of GPT-4. Which ones are not connected to the web? Because I'm getting messages when I use mobile that say, "Oh, I can't search the web in certain ones."
They're
Is it
none of
lying
Uh,
to me, or
fully,
oh,
well,
oh, one is not. 4 should
mini
be.
or preview?
Yeah, Mini and Preview are. Yeah. The other weird thing about Mini and Preview, and it's maybe not that weird, but um,
But all the rest of them are, right?
yeah, all the rest of them should. Yeah.
It lies to me. It says I can't search the web, and I say yes, you can, and it insists it can't, and I'm not using
While I
oh
was in
one.
settings there, if you look at settings, you can turn on and off somewhere in here. It's actually in personalization, custom instructions. Custom instructions has capabilities. So I wonder if this is just turned off somehow for you.
Oh,
Maybe,
I'll
I
check
don't
it.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, and people do that on purpose, I think, if they don't want the LLM to create a response that involves some sort of searching. They just maybe wanted to use its own pre-trained memory.
Where are custom instructions again? Under my name?
Settings,
Oh,
personalization.
okay.
And if you're in Europe or something like that, there are places where personalization doesn't work because of privacy laws.
Peter, do you have a hard stop at 7 today, at the top of the hour today?
Usually I think usually we go till 7:30, and I'm expecting to go till 7:30.
Okay, cool.
I probably won't go over 7:30, but thanks for asking, RJ.
Yeah, I figured it good to ask because sometimes
Yep,
you got to remember to eat dinner or whatever you got to
yep,
do.
exactly. I get excited and I don't. Yep. Um, this has been a fun romp, and I wanted to get back to images actually. Should we recognize images? Let's do a play thing for me, which is using APIs. Should we recognize images or should we generate images? And by the generating image thing I want to do is actually with Flux, if that makes a difference. So it wouldn't just be Dolly, it would be Flux.
I think people like Flux.
Should we try to make a Flux image generator?
You're going to make a Flux image generator? Oh, using the
Yeah.
API. Okay.
Yeah. Paul and I have a date someday to make a web version of Pixie too, but maybe we'll try Flux, generating images with Flux. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I don't know if it's cheating. I have a friend. I have a friend. We do programming stuff together, and it always happens that I'm like, I'm gonna cheat and ask the LLM how to do this, or do this crazy thing, and he's like, that's not cheating, Pete. So anyway, this is kind of not cheating either. It kind of is cheating, kind of not. FAL is a paid provider of inference, more or less. And they actually so a lot of the models you want to run, they run. But their deal is, so they've got all these kinds of models. Their deal is they actually charge money. So the bad news is it costs money. The good news is it doesn't cost a lot, and then you get exactly what you want. And I think, so I guess there's a caveat here. I think I can hit Flux through FAL. If that's not true, then this is going to end very quickly. But let's try. So I've never hit the FAL API. And while we're thinking about FAL, so Replicate is another service like this. And I haven't actually really ever, I'm going to grab this, which is funny. This is a third-party thing, BuildShip. Yeah, I guess I won't. Let's at least document.
So FAL is the fast version of Flux that's paid?
It's a not necessarily fast, because if you want fast, you could go to
Schnell, right?
Schnell is a different, so Flux comes in 3 models, Pro, Schnell, and one other one, I forget what. That's actually just the model size. Flux, Pro, Schnell.
Because Perplexity has Flux in it, but
Yeah.
I haven't had great luck with it. And I have it in Crea, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so it's got 3 models, Schnell, Dev, and Pro. The difference, by the way, Schnell means, probably most of you know this, Schnell means fast and quick in German. So Flux Schnell is supposed to run fast. It's a smaller model, and that's why it runs fast. Flux Dev is the one that most people can use easily, and then Flux Pro has some extra licensing things where if you're integrating with it, there's certain things about it that you have to, mind your. Not everybody gets to use Flux Pro, so a lot of times, if a company doesn't have the wherewithal to figure out with the Flux people how to use Flux Pro, they'll use Flux Dev, and then they won't tell you that they're using Flux Dev. They'll just say we have Flux too. So. This reminds me, that whole Schnell Dev Pro thing reminds me of 2 things, actually. One of them is our friend Claude 3.5. This is a fairly common pattern to have, 3 models, the baby one, the I guess, or the Goldilocks ones, right? There's the baby bear and the mama bear and the papa bear or whatever. The middle one is, or sorry, the small one is fast and the big one is slow but smarter. And the middle one is maybe the one you choose. I don't know. With 3.5, so Claude 3 is like that. It has those three models. 3.5, they figured out how to do it, but they did it only for Sonnet. So everybody's using, I use 3.5 Sonnet all the time. Theoretically, it's not as smart as 3.5 Opus will be, but I'm super happy with 3.5 Sonnet. So another thing it reminds me of is today was Midjourney office hours with David, and he was saying video is going really well. He had some great news. Video is going really well, and he's got the same trade-off actually. He says we can make great video, but it would run so slow and be so expensive that nobody could afford it. Or we can, make super fast video that's crappy, or we're trying to find the happy medium where people like it and it's fast, but it's also, great. So that was cool to hear from him.
Oh, by the way, I just put a link in the chat because I happen to remember that other people were doing what you're trying to do right now. And I saw this video where this guy claims you can do it directly with Flux's API. So can't you just get a Flux API key for free, maybe?
That's a good question.
Yeah, this guy, the
is
video
this-
guy, he claims that you can. If you look at the description of the video,
Is it the make
Yeah.
yeah, how to access
Black
Flux
Forest Labs?
AI for free.
It's a good question. Thanks for asking. I was all ready to pay money. I think this is going to be for pay though. I think. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, you add credits to your account. So it's a good idea. I could use and they would Black Forest, since they make Flux, they were gonna have the newest stuff sooner. It's always cool when the newer better thing is cheaper.
Yeah.
So I could go directly to Black Forest and use their API. That's a good idea. Let's look at FAL pricing for so they've got 112. I don't know if they're going to be able to tell us pricing right off because they actually do it off their GPUs more than so there you go. Flux 1, not 1.1, is 5 cents per megapixel. So it's about the same price. Black Forest quoted us 5 cents per image, which is probably a megapixel. So, yeah, this is a conundrum because I was kind of expecting to use FAL just because writing code that hits the FAL API is, I think it's going to make it so that FAL's got a ton of different models, not just Flux. So once you start getting code for, once you've got code for Flux, you could start doing a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah, so this would be more a good generic thing to learn then.
Yeah. I think I would go with this. It would be interesting to see how easy it would be to do SDXL images. I'd like how different the API is for SDXL and Flux, for instance. But even this is Flux Realism is a custom trained LoRa for Flux, and so this would be a cool thing to be able to get to be able to switch back and forth between regular Flux and the LoRa one. So let's see how far we get with FAL. It's always interesting hitting a quick start because it's like, it doesn't quite start where I want to start. What I was really expecting was to see all the endpoints, but they do have the thing right here. Another good thing is right here is how to create an API key. So creating an API key is important first, or important soon. So this is this is a fairly standard thing when you're working with an API. This is a way to call the API through a little web page that they have set up for you. So you can play around with it by hand, more or less. And you'll also see that we only have a few choices here. So this is, this is an easy way to get started. But because I want to do Flux instead of Stable Diffusion, I don't even want to play with this playground. So now I have to go back and so the quick start works with the Stable Diffusion endpoints, but I don't care. I want the Flux endpoints. So, and I don't see that right here real quick. So let's try this. This queue scares me. Queues are kind of like what they sound like. It's a line that you put stuff into, and then things happen over time. But it kind of looks like what you do is, yeah, maybe it's okay. So this makes sense when you're calling an API, especially for something that's going to take a while. When you're calling an API, the classic way to call an API is you set up the function call kind of like this here. This is the prompt and the seed and the aspect ratio and the number of images. So this is the input. You send it off to the API and then you wait around. Literally, your program just sits there chewing up CPU cycles going, is it back yet? Is it back yet? Are we there yet? And then you get the answer back. That's fine when the question and answer happen within a short amount of time, like 50 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second, something like that. If it's going to take a while, like if it's going to take 10 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds, it's not good for anybody, for my API client to be waiting around going, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? It kind of wastes everybody's time and CPU cycles. So it's a lot better for me to say, hey, I'm going to drop this off in the queue and then I'll check it, I'll check the results of it, asynchronously another way. But all of that queue stuff is extra code. So anyway, it makes it a little bit harder. A cool thing that they've got here is Python code, little Python code snippets, and two flavors, one that's synchronous and one that's async. It's kind of weird. In the olden days, this was super important, and nowadays, a lot of times, what I do is I say, hey Claude or hey ChatGPT, write me a FAL client. So then having the documentation broken out like this is actually not great at all. I've had to go into some APIs and copy and paste this into one document so I can give it to ChatGPT 01. 01 doesn't take uploads or anything. It has to all be text. So let's see how far we get. So probably what this is going to be is a way of thinking about how to work with APIs rather than actually getting to work with an API, because this might be a little bit complicated. But so a trick with 01 is what I want to use in the main. A trick is to start off with 4.0 and then switch the conversation to 01, because I don't know why, because actually, partly to, I think there's still O1 throttling. I've never run into it, but you only have so many messages you can send to O1 before you run out of, that week's
Oh, right, like
quota.
30 or something like that, 30 or
Yeah,
50?
30 for preview and 50 for mini. For O also does attachments and things. O1 doesn't. So sometimes it's nice to start with attachments like PDFs or something. Just for form, I don't think I need to, but I'm going to start with 4.0 first. And instead of saying write me a, I think I'm going to ask, I'm going to say something like, don't write an app yet, but could you? I'm expecting it to say, I actually kind of hope it says no. Um, so let's talk about a little terminology. An endpoint is an API has different. Some of you know this metaphor where an API is a little bit like the using the service entrance on a restaurant to order food, wholesale rather than retail. So, and in that scenario, you might go to either a restaurant that has different styles of food, American and French and Chinese and Korean. You might go to different doors, and you have the Korean food delivery system and the American food delivery system, and everything is kind of tuned because the requests will be different and things like that. You go to a particular door and make your order. So each of those doors for an API would be called an endpoint. And then hit is the way that you would say that. You wouldn't say go up to the door or go up to the endpoint. You would say hit.
Wow, it's amazing how it's able to say, yeah, sure.
Well, this is what I didn't want, right?
Oh.
um,
Well,
it's
it shows that does it show that it can do it or not?
what it said. It said I'm just going to assume that it's a standard REST API. Um,
Oh, I
so
see.
if it were a standard REST API, this would be great code. This is just generic code for kind of any REST thing. Um, uh,
Is that a
I didn't.
valid assumption or?
No, I don't think so. I think
Oh, okay.
because we ran really quickly into queue management. Um, by the way, there's a different way to do this, which is to install their software. This is a Python library that knows how to talk to FAL. And then I guess all this code, now that I think about it, this code is actually working through their library. So that adds a whole another wrinkle. I wasn't paying attention very well. I was just going, oh yeah, this looks like an API call. But it's actually not doing an API call. It's doing a function call through their library, and then the library knows how to do the API calls.
So can I ask you a question? Like on this FAL webpage, do they explain which AI systems can write code for it, or in their user
No,
chat they don't know? Okay.
because any system could.
Oh, I see.
Um, it your question kind of reminds me, and this is going to be a weird, like, snaking its own tail thing, but um, uh, let's see. This is a API based system that I wrote recently, and we've looked at it a couple times uh, in these calls. This is just a chat server or a chat system, LLM chat system. Um, I'm going to pick a different one here, Mini, for different reasons. Mini's cheaper. Wow, that's hard to type. One of the things about this client is you can switch models in the middle of it. And another thing about this model is I like this answer, the philosophical one. One of the things about this is that it does streaming. So you saw it typing the answer as it comes back, which is a fancy thing that the LLMs do. So I wrote this with O1, this whole system that does chat things, and it took it took a number of hours going back and forth with O1. But so part of that, you saw me switch from GPT-4 to Claude. So this client has to know how to talk to Claude. I have found that ChatGPT is very good about knowing its own APIs. It knows OpenAI APIs really well. But when I asked it to talk to Claude, it kind of did the same thing. It's like, well, assuming it's a standard REST API, and it just kind of like winged it. And it was wrong. And I'm kind of coming around in a backwards way to your question, RJ.
Yeah, I would think that the FAL user group would have some sort of place where they explain how to use AI to do the FAL stuff.
I'm cheating a little bit, or I'm doing it the wrong way a little bit. It's kind of funny. It looks like that a lot of their API stuff is built around SDXL. So all of this API documentation is probably from when they first started. I don't know how well they've been keeping it up to date. That's another scary thing. Most people, I'm interested in working directly with their REST API, but most people would do what I just did here. Let me just use a library, and I'm using Kotlin, or I'm using Swift, or JavaScript, or Python. These are each different kinds of programming languages. Kotlin is a mobile phone one. Java is a mobile phone one nowadays, more or less. So then these greatly simplify the interaction with the API for a small cost of knowing how to call the thing, but they make it super, super easy. They just make it one function call, basically. So the library, the Python library that they have that you could install in your code is doing a lot of fancy API stuff that most people don't care about, most devs don't care about. So this is, in a way, this is kind of the answer to your question, shouldn't they make this easy for people? And they do. They just give you a little app called the library that just does it for you, written in whatever language you want, as long as it's one of these. If it's Go, then then you would go to your community and say, is anybody working on a Go client? Here's what I want to do though. So this was a good detour because I want to use the REST endpoint. So we'll have to figure out how to do I'll keep doing this in my spare time. We'll have to figure out how to do the queue management and the webhooks and stuff like that. So probably what I'm gonna have to do, kind of again to RJ's point, shouldn't they just tell you, hey, if you're using ChatGPT, here's what to do. If you're using Claude, here's what to do. All the LLMs they're all, you don't need to have specific information for them. A thing that you do need to have, and I got frustrated when I was trying wherever CogniChat ended up. Let's look at the API reference for Claude. So remember, what I wanted to do was ask, I wanted to ask O1 to write a Claude client, and then you have to interact with the Claude API, right? So, and I knew that I wanted to use messages. So here's how to create a message and stuff like that. So this is super nice for reading as reference documentation. And, you know, we've had a couple decades of learning how to present documentation, like technical documentation, in a way that's easy for people to read. So this is really easy for a human to read. And it's almost impossible to copy and paste this into instructions for O1. So I spent 20 or 30 minutes, I think, turning this web page into something that had clean text, and it didn't have, you know, this sidebar thing, and it was a kind of a nightmare turning this into something that I could say, hey, O1, here's how to use the message API. So I wish, to RJ's point, kind of, I wish there were a thing, copy this as a prompt for an LLM, you know. Someday we'll have that, but we don't yet. And so now back to FAL, same thing. It's got, we did find the REST API, which is great. But, and this is maybe a little easier to copy and paste. But even with these separate pages, I wish this was all one page. So I wish there were a thing that said, copy this all as a PDF for your, you know, to give to your LLM.
It seems like FAL.ai is really meant more for programmers. Is that true? Or
Yes, it's very true.
and I was wondering if there's an equivalent to FAL.ai that's more meant for, you know, non-code, you know, codeless or whatever they call that. No code.
No code.
Yeah.
The short answer is yeah, I think there are, and I don't know them.
Okay.
This is not for Flux. It's a no-code app builder called Flux. Yeah, the yeah, there probably are. I actually, you know, the even better than that is the what's the one that we were so excited about for a while? Flux. There's a
Glyph. Oh,
it's a short name with
I thought you were going to say glyph, but
yes, exactly, Glyph.
yeah. Yeah, actually, I was going to ask in the beginning, why aren't we using glyph for that? For Flux, because they use Flux there.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're right. Well, I think I can answer that. I'm going to go over time a couple minutes and answer that, and then we'll quit.
Okay.
I got to go. Thanks a lot, Pete and guys.
We'll see you, Rick.
Hey,
Take care.
Rick.
Bye-bye.
So Glyph is a simple no code, you know, no code thing, right? And it's cool because you can make I guess I have to log in or something. I guess I am logged in. I think I've got a few. So, and this is, you know, I forked this from somebody else, but it's got little code blocks, and I can put together what I want. You know, I can call a LLM to sweeten the prompt, and then I can call an image generator, and I can choose which image generator. And so this is, you know, this is a no code system. That's cool. I never saw that. I guess it's broken. So this gives me a little bit of control, but it doesn't give me a lot of control. And because I'm not scared of programming, I it's a good question. I have to remember why I even wanted to generate Flux images. So I did at some point for some reason, and it seemed like a good reason. So there's some reason I want to have generate Flux images, probably as part of some workflow that I'm developing. And if I build a little Python app or a web page app or something like that, maybe a different way to say it is, wouldn't it be cool to have a Jankifier, you know, where you paste your text in here and it raccoonifies it, and then you click another button that says generate this with Flux Pro. You know, put your FAL API key in here or your Black Forest API key or whatever, and then just generate it right here, right? It was some marketing kind of thing where I wanted to be able have people be able to do predictable images rather than mid-journey images, and the easiest way to show people how to do it was actually just to code up essentially kind of a Jankifier that does it. So that's why.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you did mention that in the past
Yeah.
meetings. Yeah.
So let's pause there. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the earlier discussion, and then also in accompanying me on my journey through the wonders of FAL and queue management and that kind of stuff. We'll see if I keep going with FAL. I'll at least look at Replicate and probably Black Forest. I think I do want a Flex image generator where I've got code that's doing it. So I think I'll do one of them, but we'll see. There you go. I'll keep you posted.
Cool.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, everybody.
Paul.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody. We'll see you
Thank
around.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.